Thanks everybody. Great to be here today in South Africa. I'm absolutely delighted to be representing the Integrity 360 UK and Ireland part of the business into South Africa. As Aki said, I look after the solution architecture function, which is a very fulfilling role because we really get to talk to customers around the globe and ultimately see what's trending, what problems we're solving. Typically in the UK, we'll see that tends to roll out into Europe and things like that. So it's really good to sort of identify the trends, and really what we end up doing is taking problems that we're solving in one part of one customer and replicating them into others. So yeah, delighted to be here. One trend, certainly within the UK and Ireland, is XDR. We're seeing that market start to take off, and I think it's been really interesting talking to Martin as I've got to know the sort of the trends within Africa in terms of what's actually happening within South Africa. So it made sense that I think we'd have that sort of debate a little bit around what's working and what's not within South Africa. I think so, Martin. Let's kick into it. I think first and foremost, one of the things that I think we actually struggle with is XDR as a term. Do you want to kick off with defining what XDR actually is, and perhaps also just cover quickly the asterisk DR part of it, the other detection and response capabilities?
Yeah, sure. I think the marketing departments have played havoc with all these new acronyms, and we've kind of come to terms with it here. But I think in our region, if I were just to take a little bit of a step back, and we had EDR over a decade ago. Then we had MDR, and some people called managed EDR MDR, so that was a bit of confusion already, where we called MDR more of a holistic approach around that. And then we got XDR, and that really kind of, we were thinking, what's this now? And it was extended. So for me, I saw it as extended beyond the endpoint, where EDR focused on the endpoint. Extended was, looking at logs from others or getting input from other sources, and then NDR, and the latest one I saw was I don't even know how to pronounce this. It's XCM, which is Extended Security Infrastructure Automation Management. Yeah, so get your head around that one, guys, because that's the next one that's coming. So I think on the Joburg panel, I was quite adamant about XDR being a platform. Me and Taryn had a discussion, and I kind of changed my perception around that. So as much as I think we see XDR as a thing that brings everything together, I almost see it as like the next evolution of SIEM, right? Because if we look at SIEM, that was what it was supposed to do, bring all our logs together and do the detection and manage all the logs. But now XDR, what's different about it? It adds machine learning and some of those new technologies and methodologies to the SIEM platform. So it's kind of a next generation, just like AV moved from AV to EDR. Yeah. So that's how I would describe it in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's interesting. Certainly, as I mentioned, we've talked a lot about trends in terms of UK, Ireland, Europe, and we are seeing that consolidated play start to take off. I think the Microsoft word's difficult to avoid. I think with the exception of finance houses, I think within financial institutes, we're still seeing best of breed. Typically adoption of EPP, EDR, maybe NDR, but certainly with SIEM for regulatory login and compliance reasons. Give me a flavour about what you're seeing in South Africa.
Yeah, I mean, I think traditionally, and it's probably not just in South Africa, the financial services, they've got some serious risk, and it was brought to light early in cyber. So they invested in SIEM where most other organizations hadn't done that. So I would almost say that they had quite a strong investment, and they were mature from a SIEM perspective. So if you looked at what they were doing, in many cases they were already doing XDR. But we've got this new technology, the AI, machine learning, the automation that could be added on top of that. But they were ahead of the game in most cases.
Yeah, interesting. A bit of a positive, in terms of XDR centric solutions is often consolidation, lower cost, total cost of ownership, better interoperability typically. but to balance that view, challenges, what are inversely the negatives to an XDR option?
Yeah, sure. So, those positives are, 100, that was what brought about XDR. But, when you start looking at a single platform, and traditionally, I think a lot of the XDR providers come from EDR or even network, and then they've added on this, where SIEM technology was a dedicated thing designed to bring everything together. So now there's a little bit of a reliance on maybe something that isn't as specialized as SIEM was supposed to be, and it kind of dilutes, maybe you're not getting the best of breed. You have to kind of plug in other solutions that aren't best of breed.
Yeah, fair enough, important not just to have a regional CTO view. Thanks, obviously I think customer voice is the most important in the room here, So, Peter, do you want to give us a view in terms of, are you an XDR, do you adopt an XDR approach? What's working for you within your organisation?
So we have a hybrid setup. Okay. We use different vendors for the different technologies, the EDR, the SOAR, your identity, your whatever, your SIEM, most important. And then all of those, that different technology stack, that is what we use to simulate the XDR architecture.
Okay, right, okay. Do you manage that in-house? Is that an outsourced, in-sourced type approach?
Again, a hybrid setup.
Yeah.
We do trust our MSSPs with the SOC, and also some advanced services like advanced threat hunting and all of those type of things.
Yeah.
We do keep internal oversight of the processes and all of that.
Yeah.
And the majority of our tools is we manage that in-house.
Yeah.
And then we also rely on managed services to help us out where we fall short.
Yeah, so the 24/7 sort of oversight, but as you say, the day-to-day adds, moves, changes, and administration in-house essentially.
Yes.
Yeah, essentially. Neil, what's the, are you an XDR house? Best of breed? What's your sort of approach?
So we haven't adopted the full XDR. We rely mainly on Darktrace together with SentinelOne.
Okay.
And then we still have Mimecast for awareness training for our users, basically just to close the gap and educate them on things like not clicking on links, malicious links and stuff like that.
Interesting.
And then, that's...
I think SentinelOne alerts, to again, it's interesting because you've got best of breed technologies, but you can also bring your SentinelOne EDR alerts in through the dark traces, which is, I guess, technically by definition an XDR architecture. So is it? Hello.
Yeah, I think I like to challenge the traditional XDR definition. Essentially, it's to avoid a siloed approach. So as long as your technologies are integrated, or you're integrating as many of your cyber investments as possible, and they're sharing that telemetry and that intelligence, talking to each other, you're really halfway there. I think a lot of XDR is like another acronym, and you decide as security leaders what's going to work for your business. And in most cases, if you are integrating a lot of your technology, you're already halfway there. It depends on your risk appetite, it depends on your budget, which I think you guys are doing very well.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think that's like Peter mentioned, you can use a service to bring it together and make it XDR. And then you're not using an XDR platform, but it's about not having the solid approach and getting information from all the different sources and getting them to work together. Again, I still feel that is what SIEM was supposed to do. It just wasn't very successful, so they had to think of another name that was going to give it another go.
No, it's a good point, Martin. In terms of you could have vendors being the XDR, the central point of ingestion of things, of events from other log sources, but actually you touched on something that's interesting there. Obviously an XDR service architecture as well, whereby you can bring in your best of breed products into a higher level service, like bringing it into a SOAR, to actually then have your alerts correlated at the SOAR level to then be passed on to analysts. It's quite an interesting, also alternative approach really. The answer quite simply is there is no right answer, isn't it? It depends. It's a great old cyber answer of it depends. Yeah. Peter, just in terms of, give me a view, just in terms of what can be, you mentioned about 24/7 is part of managed service there. Give me a view, what can MSPs, what can vendors be doing better to support customers? What's our takeaway here? I've got my pen ready. I did have one.
I think vendors can move quicker from implementation to value add.
Yeah.
Because the sooner I see interesting information, attacks, less false alerts, the quicker I will trust the platform and have a bigger adoption on that.
Yeah. MSPs?
Well, what's working well for me is that we do have the 24/7 coverage, the eyes on glass. Especially if you have a SOC MDR company that provides the SLAs on your meantime to respond.
Yeah.
But what's not working well for me is having a distributed or hybrid approach with the different vendors forming your XDR stack.
Yeah.
That was makes it difficult for your use case management, for your rule, for creating new rules, detection rules, and stitching that all together.
Yeah.
Having all of that together, I think I feel like we wasting time and duplicating effort to bring the whole picture together.
Yeah, interesting. Which I think links to what we were just sort of touching on there, is that XDR service architecture can bring those, allows you to choose your best of breed products to solve based on your environment, whether you're needing network detection and response, endpoint detection and response, login. It still allows you that best of breed product selection whilst being able to adopt a sort of overarching XDR service, which is quite interesting. Yeah. Neil, a view from yourself in terms of vendors or MSPs, what can we be doing better to enable and support your cyber strategy?
Look, at the end of the day, like Peter also mentioned earlier when the gentleman asked what keeps you awake at night, and I mean, since we took the SOC services from Grove as we knew it, I think we can actually sleep better at night, knowing that you don't have to keep your eyes on things because obviously there's other moving parts of IT as well. Knowing that there's a SOC service that looks after your environment where it gets busy at times also helps, Yeah, so at the moment I rely heavily on the SOC service, and obviously there is things where it needs our input as well, where things like false positives gets detected, and where people travel out of South Africa in a different country and then picks up that someone logged in from those areas. And yeah, like I said, at the moment SOC's working for me. I'm happy with it. So yeah, well done on that.
That's an interesting point. That wasn't planned, but I didn't actually do that. But I think that's an interesting. The last part where you said now bringing a bit of feedback from Johannesburg as well. I think that what was very interesting is knowing the business. MSPs must know the business and what you serve, and having that actual understanding when we're looking at alerts. What you actually do, what are your movements as a unit, what are your crown jewels, I think what should not be the case is that you get standard off-the-shelf offerings and that's that, I think it's got to understand your crown jewels within your organisation, what makes you unique into business and how you move around. I think that's key, and that was a bit of feedback in Joburg, which I think was worth sharing about with yeah, really good. Thanks for that. Taryn, thanks for sitting patient. Sorry. AI, it's obviously a theme. Can't not sort of touch on that. Darktrace has had AI in there from the very beginning. It's been born from that sort of that background. Give me a view in terms of why is AI so essential to the defenders' success versus the bad guys?
Yeah, I think the threat landscape is constantly evolving. Cyber attacks are obviously getting smarter, and they're using social engineering in very interesting ways, as Richard mentioned. So we need to evolve. We need to kind of keep up. I always say or advise my clients, to think like an attacker. Attackers are using AI. They are entrepreneurs. They're agile. They're super relentless in what they do, and AI powered. So to be one step ahead, you need to invest and adopt AI in your strategy.
Yeah. Certainly, even in integrity, we see the benefits of AI within our SOARs, within the tools, start to make the correlation, the ability to bring together the information in a pre-triage state to present to analysts, to allow analysts to query that in natural human language. I think it's a super powerful thing, and certainly helping the response time, the mean time to triage.
And also, reducing that mean time to meaning, understanding what is actually going on. I think we are inundated with so many alerts. AI is really there to try and augment the team and empower them in understanding very quickly what is happening in the environment, who's involved, what do I need to do about it, and how do I prevent it from happening again.
Yeah.
So AI is there to really reduce the time to meeting, detection, response. And I think a big thing that we're seeing is the response aspect. It's not, you can't be reactive in response. And the autonomous response, that Doctors has, it just kind of gives you that comfort knowing that the AI is taking on that heavy lifting for you while you're sleeping.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of different products of Doctors, and like you mentioned earlier, budget obviously doesn't make it easier, because at the end of the day you would want all the products. Like every time when the team, amazing team by the way, Bob and Bruce and Bianca, when they approach us, then it's always like...
We're getting good plugs here. You can come again, I'm going to have to bring you back.
Yeah. Obviously, always trying to introduce us to new technologies.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's one of the main reasons why I'm sitting here today, because I always have a fight with pricing, budget.
Yeah.
So after I agreed to be here on the stage, now we don't have to fight that fight anymore.
Oh, bless you. Yeah, Bob, you're in trouble, I think. Yeah, brilliant. I like that. Do you see the benefits of AI within obviously platforms that you're using, or are you, again, is it because it's 24/7, 365, outsourced? Do you witness those benefits yourself? Or?
No, definitely. So, what I've been concentrating on is using the platform. One example, the AI platforms or capabilities. So one example that I've got consolidating tools, not all of them, but I've combined the vulnerability management product with our EDR. And then within that learning in the AI capabilities, that can give us much more rich information on your actual threat exposure.
Yes.
And then what you need to go and react on, because we know there is 1,000,002 vulnerabilities. We need to patch one. We can't patch everything, so we need to prioritize. And then we use that AI capabilities to tell us, okay, that's your attack path, that is critical. Use from the AI, use your threat intel also to match up. That's huge value that I've seen in just the move that I've done with consolidating those two tools.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So you've made a conscious choice to actually probably push the consolidated play, because not only are you benefiting from detection and response, the benefits of the detection and response capabilities within the tool, it's actually also shifting left in terms of exposure. It's actually also looking at the vulnerabilities, so more of a proactive prevention in a single platform. That's sort of what you're, if I understand correctly, Peter, what you're doing.
Yes, but also what I think we should do with that, now we should leverage on and we should do the validation. We need to use the detections, or when the vulnerability comes out, or it shows you on your console you've got an attack path. You've got to use automated pen testing tools to actually see if you're actually vulnerable to that, if your MDR doesn't actually, will stop the breach. Because then you can lower that remediation, or the priority of that remediation, because you've got coverage, and you can spend more time on something that will not be detected, and then you have to go back to your use case management service, build detection and prevention rules. So huge benefit in that.
Just to hype from help, Taryn, again, we see a lot in the market. You don't have to look too far on any website for any vendor before you see the word AI powered. It's at the start, it's been hard. We've been there from the very beginning, they all say it. How do you tell the hype and help if you're evaluating the market? What's your advice to customers?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is understanding how long have they been using AI. Has it been embedded in their technology from the beginning? Or is it something that they've just kind of added on now because of the need to stay relevant? I think when you are evaluating AI vendors, don't be afraid to ask the hard questions. How long have you been using AI? And, is there local support? Whether the partner, because I think the biggest thing with you is having a partner who can manage the AI for you and support you. You can't be everything for everyone. So yeah, understanding who are their references in the industry. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask them hard questions.
Do we, just around the panel, do we think that XDR, that AI will replace the need for jobs? Obviously, we've got a huge staff shortage. It's able to do more than ever. Do we think that it'll take the need for?
Yeah. So if I can jump in there, I mean, I've been very cautious with AI. I think it's you talk about hype. I think it's in the hype cycle, and we can't implement AI because our service is quite impactful for a customer. If we have problems with a service or things go wrong, our customers are expecting a high, you're expecting 100% when you're talking about cybersecurity, and I don't think AI is quite there yet. So we are using it absolutely to help validate use cases and help analysts and actually educate them, and documentation. So we're taking a bit of a cautious approach, but absolutely we're finding uses for it in that space.
I think, in terms of jobs, definitely not ready to take over our jobs, and I don't think we have the processing power. I'm sure you can't handle the processing power needed for that. But I think, sorry, what is the question again? AI jobs. Definitely not. So I think AI is here to really augment and empower, our teams. I think it's also, you need to understand what AI are we using? Because AI can be so many things to so many people. It can be user behavior analytics. It can be, it's just sharing customer intelligence and then saying, I use AI. Is it unsupervised? Is it supervised? Is it a combination of the two? So truly understanding also kind of what AI is.
Okay. We see the benefits of it as well. As I said, it actually helps with job retention as well.
For sure.
It's key for doing the mundane activities, allowing analysts to do far more meaningful things, because that pre-triage has happened, actually allows them to step up into level 2, level 3 type analyst roles, to do more sophisticated things. It helps level 3 analysts to start to conduct proactive threat hunting, because again, it's taken it's an efficiency thing really, it's how we sort of bracket.
As Martin said, it's also about education.
Yeah.
If AI or the tools that you're investing in aren't supporting the people using it, you're not going to retain them.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about the skill shortage. We definitely shouldn't be firing people in cybersecurity. We should be augmenting them. No, it's helping them.
I'm looking at the clock, but I want to talk about futures, because PT talked, something caught my attention in terms of what we've touched on there. Detection and response is a matured market. We understand what to do. We have tactics. It's well defined. Tactics, techniques, and procedures. Easy for me to say. It's well defined by my attack framework. So detection response tools are able to, ultimately identify these. What should customers be doing to be more proactive rather than waiting for something to go off in an alert within an environment. That is the detection response. That's the far right of the kill chain. What should customers be doing, and advice to customers to proactively prevent? What would your advice be? Mine, maybe just quickly touch these off.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think AI is quite there yet to do the detection part. You know, if I were to look at it, my approach would be, you know, let's use AI to help get rid of some of the false alerts, so that we can get our humans to focus on the detection part. Yeah. It's just too tricky. It's too risky. You know, if you get AI doing a funny Trump video, that's fine. But if it's making a bad decision on an alert, you know, it's putting it at risk. So yeah.
What about exposures? I mean, you touched on it earlier, Peter, you talking about the platform player now dealing with the exposure management. You're using, you said it's vulnerability management. I think that we also should be considering the wider exposures in organisations and starting to not look just at vulnerabilities, but actually at misconfigurations, leak credentials, looking at our external footprint as well, to be more proactive on the mitigation of exposures in the first place before attackers take advantage of them. You're clearly in a good place because you're using that sort of adoption. Are we seeing that trend? Are we seeing exposure management trend in South Africa? Is that a theme?
Well,
right.
I don't think I think it's more marketing see there's a trend, but for me definitely I definitely see there's a need of doing that.
Yeah.
I'm on that track, and I see huge value in that. I see there's a little bit of an onboarding and an education piece with the actual patch teams that's responsible for the remediation to understand, okay, well, I don't just have this stuff to do now. I'm going to push you to actually remediate what is there. So there is difficulty moving into that space, but slowly you will get there. You know, how do you eat the elephant? Just bit by bit. That's what we do.
Yeah, just to add to that, and everyone's looking at this timer. It's just hit 0, but I'm going to finish this. So, I mean, exposure management is definitely something that we need to focus more, and I think AI can absolutely help it. Richard was speaking about how AI can do kind of enumeration automatically, where humans would have to do that. So I definitely think those vendors that are doing exposure management can use AI, and we rely on them to do that, you know, implement that technology there.
Great, thanks, Martin. Thank you. We are at time, so, and I'm conscious that we've been sitting patiently for your break. Aki, are you coming back on? I think we are at time. No, you are. Okay, cool. So, yeah, thanks very much for that. You know, in sum, the great answer is it depends with XDR. I think it depends on your environment. Maybe EDR is the right tool of choice. Maybe XDR. I think you know, it's great insight for the different views and the trends in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. A round of applause for our panel, please.